The laughter still echoed in my ears long after the words left my mother's mouth. We only support children who make us proud, unlike her. She said it with that sharp smile she wore whenever she wanted to seem graceful while cutting someone open. Everyone at the party laughed, even my cousins. I just stood near the back, pretending to check my phone. It was my parents' anniversary celebration, hosted in our family's large garden. Fairy lights hung above the tables. A big white tent stood near the cantor, with a projector screen waiting to display a slideshow of family memories. My older brother, Liam, clinked his glass and said loudly, "Don't worry, Mom, not everyone can be successful." Another round of laughter. I smiled weakly. They thought I didn't mind being the failure. The art school dropout. The one who quit her job to try something creative. They didn't know what I'd been working on for the past 2 years. My hands shook slightly, not from shame this time but from anticipation. They thought they'd humiliated me for the last time. I checked my watch. 10 more minutes until the reveal. Then they'd see who really failed whom. The party had been planned for months. Mom loved to show off our perfect family. She invited her friends from the club, Dad's business partners, and every relative she could find. There were almost 200 guests. I wasn't supposed to be there. Mom had told me, "You can come if you promise not to talk about your little projects." She said projects like it was a disease. I had smiled and agreed. The truth was, I had been invited by someone else, someone who knew what tonight really meant. As I walked through the crowd, I noticed familiar looks. Some were pity, some judgment. My aunt whispered something to another woman, and they both glanced at me. I caught a few words. Still unemployed? I kept walking, calm and quiet, but my heart beat faster. Every table had a small screen showing slides of the Clark family legacy. My brother's law awards, my sister's medical degree, my parents' charity work. Not a single photo of me. That used to hurt. Now it just fueled me. At exactly 7:30 p.m., the lights dimmed. My father tapped the microphone. "Everyone, thank you for joining us." The slideshow began. I smiled. They had no idea what was about to appear next. The first few slides were the usual: wedding photos, vacations, the big house. Mom sat tall at the front table, her hand resting on Dad's. She looked like the queen of a perfect kingdom. I stood near the entrance, watching. The music played softly, and the guests murmured about how beautiful everything looked. Then the screen flickered. A quick black flash. A pause. Someone whispered, "Is it frozen?" Mom turned to the tech guy. He shrugged, confused. The lights stayed dim. The screen came back, only this time, it wasn't their slideshow anymore. It was mine. The first image showed a sketch of a small building surrounded by flowers. Then a real photo of the same building under construction. The next slide, a group of smiling children in bright uniforms standing in front of it. The words appeared slowly on the screen. The Aurora Learning Center, founded by Mia Clark. Gasps filled the tent. My mother's face froze. My father leaned forward, frowning. "Is this some kind of joke?" he muttered. It wasn't. I stepped closer to the projector, my pulse racing. My project, my dream, was finally out in the open. And this was just the beginning. For a moment, no one moved. The only sound was the soft hum of the projector. Then someone whispered, "Wait, that's her." The slideshow continued. Photos of me standing beside construction workers, teaching children, handing out books. Then clips from a local news broadcast, reporters calling the center a breakthrough in free community education. My father's friend, Mr. Patel, turned to him. "You didn't tell us your daughter runs that new school downtown." My father's face went red. "She doesn't," he said quickly, glaring at me. But I did. Every brick, every chair, every smile on those children's faces existed because of me. When I quit art school, everyone laughed. When I took 3 part-time jobs to save money, they ignored me. When I bought the old warehouse and turned it into a learning center, they didn't even ask where I went. Now, on the biggest night of their lives, the truth was shining on a 15-foot screen. My mother stood up suddenly. "Turn that off," she barked. No one moved. I took a deep breath and walked toward the stage. For once, all eyes were on me, not in pity, but in disbelief. "Good evening," I said softly into the microphone. My voice echoed through the tent. I didn't plan to interrupt, but since my work is already on display, maybe I should tell you what it really means. My mother hissed, "Mia, this is not the time." I ignored her. 2 years ago, I started a project called the Aurora Learning Center. It provides free education for kids who can't afford private schools. We began with 10 students. Now we have over 300. A few people clapped before realizing no one else was. The silence was sharp. My parents didn't support it, I continued. They said I was wasting my life. They said I brought shame to the family. But I kept going. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Mia, enough." I looked right at him. "No, Dad. Tonight, everyone will see what shame really looks like." The next slide appeared footage of the mayor cutting the ribbon at the opening ceremony. The banner behind him read, "Funded by the Clark Family Foundation." Gasps filled the room again. My father stood, eyes wide. "Tell me this isn't real." But it was. My father's voice trembled when he shouted again, "Who gave permission to use our name?" The crowd turned toward him. I stood tall, clutching the microphone. "You did," I said simply. "The Clark Family Foundation donated $500,000 last year, didn't it?" He blinked, confused. "That donation was for a community program." I nodded. "Yes, the community program that became my school." Gasps rippled through the room. The projector switched to a photo of the donation letter, signed by both my parents. Their proud signatures glowed under the spotlight. Mom whispered something under her breath, her face pale. "You tricked us." "No," I said calmly. "You ignored me. I told you I wanted to start something meaningful. You just never listened long enough to realize what I was doing with the money you gave away for tax purposes." The audience was silent. Some people hid smiles behind their hands. Others looked at my parents, waiting for their reaction. I took a deep breath. The Aurora Learning Center carries your name because I wanted to make it a symbol of hope, not vanity. For once, the Clark name stands for something good. Mom sat down slowly, speechless. Dad didn't. He stormed toward me. He stopped a few feet away, his face red with anger. "You embarrassed us in front of everyone," he growled. I didn't flinch. "No, Dad. You embarrassed yourself every time you called me a disappointment." Someone near the front table gasped. The entire tent seemed to hold its breath. "Turn this off," he shouted again at the technician. But the slides kept rolling, photos of smiling children, rows of books, and a short clip of me receiving a community award. The technician raised his hands. "It's automated, sir." Dad glared at me. "You set this up?" "Yes," I said simply. "Because I knew you'd never let me speak otherwise." My voice shook, not with fear but emotion. "For years, I tried to earn your pride. I followed every rule. I studied hard, but it was never enough. You wanted perfection, not a daughter." His jaw tightened. "You're twisting this." I looked straight into his eyes. "Maybe. But tonight, the truth isn't twisting, it's shining on that screen." Mom covered her face with her hands. The audience whispered louder. The last image appeared, a plaque with the words, "Dedicated to every child told they aren't enough." I had written that line for myself. I handed the microphone to the host and walked off stage. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. For the first time, I didn't feel small. The guests started clapping, not all, but enough. The sound grew slowly, like rain turning into a storm. Some stood up. Others whispered, "That's incredible." Mom tried to smile as people turned toward her. "Of course, we're proud," she said quickly. "We just wanted her to be stable first." Her lie was thin as paper. Everyone could see through it. I stepped outside into the night air, breathing deeply. My hands trembled from the rush. The garden lights glowed softly against the dark sky. A familiar voice called behind me. "Mia, wait." It was my cousin, Emily. She caught up, eyes wide. "That was unbelievable. You actually did all that." I nodded. "Yeah." She smiled. "I wish I had your courage." I laughed quietly. It wasn't courage. It was survival. Inside, I could still hear murmurs. Dad's angry voice, Mom's fake charm. But none of it mattered anymore. For once, they weren't the ones defining me. The truth was finally louder than their pride. I thought that was the end of it, but the night had more to say. As I walked toward the gate, I heard quick footsteps. Dad again. Mia. His voice was sharp. You think this makes you better than us? I turned slowly. No. It makes me free. He pointed at me. You used our money without telling us. You'll pay for this. I met his glare calmly. Dad, it was charity money. Donated to help the community. That's exactly what I did. You can't undo that without showing everyone what really matters to you. He froze. The truth hit him like a stone. Besides, I added, the city's mayor endorsed it publicly. If you try to disown it, you'll only ruin your own reputation. He looked like he wanted to yell, but couldn't find the words. I stepped closer. All I ever wanted was for you to see me, not what you wanted me to be. He didn't answer. He just turned away, shoulders stiff. As I watched him leave, I realized something important. I didn't need their approval anymore. The applause echoing behind me was enough proof that I'd finally done something right. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing with messages. Some from relatives, others from strangers who had seen the live-streamed video. Someone had uploaded the entire scene online. The headline read, "Daughter surprises parents with hidden charity project during party." I stared at it, half laughing, half crying. My story was spreading faster than I ever imagined. My inbox filled with messages from volunteers, teachers, even journalists asking for interviews. I sat on my bed stunned. For years, I had dreamed of people noticing my work, but not like this. Then my phone rang again. Mom. I hesitated before answering. Her voice came cold. You humiliated this family. I told the truth, I said. You turned us into a joke, she snapped. People are calling, asking if it's real. It's real, I said softly. All of it. There was a long silence. Then she whispered, you could have warned us. I smiled sadly. You never listened when I tried. She hung up. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. For the first time, the silence felt peaceful, not lonely. The world finally knew who I was. The next morning, sunlight spilled through my curtains, and my phone was still buzzing. I opened a few messages and felt my chest tighten. A message from my old art teacher read, Mia, you were always meant for more. I'm proud of you. Another from a stranger said, your story gave me courage to speak up at home. I sat there, reading every word. For once, I wasn't invisible. Then came an email from the local newspaper asking for an interview. They wanted to feature the Aurora Learning Center in their weekend edition. My hands shook as I typed a yes. An hour later, the doorbell rang. It was Aunt Clara. She looked nervous, holding a box of muffins. Can we talk? She asked quietly. I stepped aside, letting her in. I didn't know what your parents said that night, she began. If I did, I'd have stopped it. Her voice trembled. Mia, what you did, it was brave. I smiled faintly. It wasn't bravery. I just wanted to be seen. She reached for my hand. Now the whole city sees you. For the first time in years, I felt warmth in a family visit. Aunt Clara stayed for tea, her eyes scanning my small apartment. You built all this yourself? She asked softly. I nodded. Every piece of furniture, every color choice. I wanted it to feel peaceful. She smiled sadly. You didn't get much peace growing up, did you? I shrugged. Not really. Every day felt like a test. We talked for hours, something we'd never done before. She told me stories about my grandmother, how kind she'd been, how proud she would have been of me. When Clara left, I stood by the door watching her drive away. Then my phone vibrated again. It was a message from Dad. We need to talk. Dinner. Tonight. Just that. No greeting, no apology. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it. But something in me wanted closure. So, I replied, okay. 7 p.m. The rest of the day felt heavy. I couldn't focus on work or eat much. My mind kept replaying his voice, that furious tone, those words, you'll pay for this. As the clock neared 7, I looked at myself in the mirror and whispered, you've faced worse. Then I grabbed my keys and left. When I arrived, the house looked exactly the same, big, perfect, and cold. Mom opened the door, wearing her usual polished smile. You came, she said, almost surprised. I said I would, I replied. Dad sat at the dining table, newspaper in hand. He didn't look up until I sat down. So he began, "You've made quite a spectacle." I folded my hands. It wasn't about spectacle. Mom poured water into my glass. "You should have told us, Mia. We could have managed the narrative." I almost laughed. Manage the narrative? It wasn't a PR event, Mom. It was my life. Dad finally met my eyes. "You embarrassed us. The company board is questioning my values." "Maybe they're just seeing the truth," I said quietly. The silence that followed was sharp. "You will issue a statement," he said finally. "Something polite, apologetic." "No," I said simply. He frowned. "Excuse me. I'm not apologizing for doing good," I said. "I'm not hiding who I am anymore." Mom looked away as if embarrassed. I stood up, heart racing. "I came to listen, but I guess we're still speaking different languages." Then I walked out before they could answer. That night, I sat in my car outside their house for a while. My hands trembled, but it wasn't fear anymore, it was release. They hadn't changed, and maybe they never would. But I had. When I got home, I opened my laptop to distract myself. There were more emails, this time from organizations offering to fund my next project. A woman from a global education group even wanted to meet in person. The world that had once seemed too far away was suddenly at my doorstep. A knock startled me. I opened the door to see Emily again, holding her phone up. "You're trending," she said breathlessly. I blinked. "What?" She showed me a post, millions of views. The video from the party had gone viral. Comments flooded in. "This girl is fearless. Parents like hers don't deserve her. I want to support her school." I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Emily hugged me tightly. "You did it, Mia. The world's finally seeing you for who you are." For the first time, I believed her. The next few days blurred together. News reporters called, interview requests poured in, and donations to the school tripled overnight. I visited the Aurora Learning Center that weekend. The children ran up to me, smiling, shouting my name. Their laughter filled the halls, washing away every bitter memory. One little girl handed me a handmade card. It read, "Thank you for believing in us." I pressed it to my chest, my eyes stinging. Later that evening, I sat with my team reviewing plans for expansion. We were opening 2 new branches by next year. It was surreal. Then my phone buzzed again, Dad. This time, his message was different. "Saw the interview. You've done well." No apology, but softer than before. I replied, "Thank you." That was all. As I looked out at the sunset from the classroom window, I realized something simple but powerful. Forgiveness didn't always need words. Sometimes, it was just moving forward without hate. And for the first time in my life, I didn't crave their approval. I already had mine. A week later, I stood in front of the new building site. Construction workers waved as I arrived, and I waved back. It still felt unreal seeing the sign, Aurora Learning Center, second branch. While I talked with the project manager, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from an unknown number. "This is Dad's assistant. Your parents will attend the city gala next weekend. The mayor will be there. He wants to honor you." I froze. Of course, my parents would be there. The thought made my stomach twist. At night, I stared at the ceiling, thinking. I didn't want drama. But I also didn't want to hide. The next morning, I told my team, "We'll go. We'll show what this school means." When the night came, I wore a simple silver dress. Nothing flashy, just me. As I stepped into the hall, cameras flashed. Voices called my name. Across the room, my parents turned to look. Mom's face went pale. Dad looked stiff. I smiled politely and walked right past them, straight toward the mayor. "Miss Clark," he said warmly, "you've done this city proud." And for once, my parents had to hear those words spoken to me, not them. The gala lights shimmered, and the air buzzed with music and talk. My parents stayed seated at their table while the mayor guided me to the front. He spoke into the microphone. "Tonight, we honor someone who showed us that kindness can outshine pride." My chest tightened. Then the screen behind him lit up with the new school plans. Laughter and applause filled the room. The mayor turned to me and said, "Mia, will you say a few words?" I stepped forward, my palms damp. When I started the Aurora Learning Center, I didn't want revenge or fame. I just wanted to create a place where no one felt unwanted. I paused, my voice shaking slightly, because I know what that feels like. There was silence, then soft clapping that grew louder. In the corner, I saw my mom dab her eyes with a napkin. Dad just stared, unreadable. When the speech ended, people crowded around, shaking my hand. For once, I didn't feel like a shadow in their world. That night, as I left the stage, I saw Dad stand up. Our eyes met briefly. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away either. That small moment felt like progress. The following morning, my phone rang. It was Dad. "Can you come by?" he asked quietly. No anger this time, just weariness. When I arrived, he was sitting in his study. Papers were stacked neatly on his desk. "I've been reading about your school," he said. "You did all that, without us?" "Yes," I said. "I had to." He nodded slowly. "I didn't realize how much it meant to you." His words felt strange, like they were fighting to come out. "I grew up believing strength meant silence," he continued. "So when you spoke up, it felt like rebellion." I met his eyes. "It wasn't rebellion, Dad. It was the only way to survive your silence." He exhaled, leaning back. "I'm sorry." For a second, I couldn't speak. I had dreamed of hearing those words, but they sounded softer, smaller than I imagined. I smiled faintly. "Thank you." He nodded. "Maybe one day we can visit the center together." "Maybe," I said. When I left, Mom stood in the hallway. She didn't say anything, but her eyes were wet. She didn't need to. Days passed, and life found a new rhythm. Interviews turned into projects, and projects turned into new beginnings. The Aurora Learning Center became a beacon for kids who once thought they'd never matter. Every time I walked those halls, I saw hope real, bright, alive. One afternoon, while painting a classroom wall with volunteers, I got a message from Mom. "We're outside." I rushed out. There they were, my parents, both dressed simply, no press, no photographers. Mom smiled nervously. "We brought something," she said, handing me a box. Inside were books, old ones from my childhood. My favorites. "I thought you might want them for the kids," she whispered. I blinked back tears. "Thank you." Dad looked around the center. "You built something strong here." I nodded. "With people who believed when no one else did." He sighed softly. "Maybe we should have believed sooner." For once, his voice didn't sound proud or harsh, it sounded human. As they left, I realized forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past. It was about letting people change, even if it took them a lifetime. The months that followed were full of quiet victories. We finished the second branch, and I started working on a scholarship program for underprivileged students. The city supported it fully. One morning, I got a letter from the National Education Board. They wanted to nominate me for a Youth Impact Award. I stared at the paper, smiling through tears. When the award night came, I invited my parents. They hesitated at first, but eventually said yes. That evening, as I walked onto the stage, I saw them sitting in the front row. Their hands were clasped together. The host announced my name, and applause filled the hall. I felt the weight of every moment, every insult, every doubt, every lonely night. Then I saw my father stand up and clap. Not forced. Not for show. Real. For the first time, I didn't need him to say anything. His actions were enough. As I held the award in my hands, I whispered silently, "This is for every child who was told they'd never be enough." And somewhere deep inside, peace finally settled. A week after the award, life felt lighter. I visited the center every day, teaching, laughing, and planning new dreams. Then one afternoon, I got a call from the event organizer who had recorded the gala months ago. "Mia," he said, "we're putting together a short documentary about your story. Would you like to include family interviews?" I hesitated. "Family?" "Yes," he said gently. "People love redemption arcs. It could help others see how you rebuilt those bridges." That night, I thought about it for hours. I wanted to believe in change, but part of me still remembered the sting of that party, the laughter, my mother's cold words. Still, I said yes. The filming took place at the Learning Center. My parents arrived together, quieter than I'd ever seen them. The crew set up cameras, lights, and microphones. When the interview started, I spoke honestly about pain and growth. Mom's voice trembled when she said, "We didn't see her for who she was." Dad added softly, "But we do now." The crew clapped when we finished. As they packed up, the cameraman smiled. "Wait till you see how this looks on the big screen." Something about that line made me shiver, though I didn't know why yet. A month later, the documentary premiere took place in the same hall where my humiliation had once played out. The irony wasn't lost on me. The red carpet glowed. Journalists took photos. My parents stood beside me, trying their best to look comfortable. As the lights dimmed, the projector flickered to life. My face appeared first, then images of the school, the kids, and my speech at the gala. People clapped softly. It felt healing. Then, halfway through, something unexpected appeared, a clip I didn't approve. It was from that night at the party before I spoke. My mother's voice filled the hall. "We only support children who make us proud, unlike her." Laughter from the guests followed. The room went completely silent. On screen, the video cut to my father, looking furious and embarrassed. Then the moment when I took the mic. I turned slowly to my parents. Mom's hands covered her mouth. Dad whispered, "I told them to remove that." The audience watched in disbelief, frozen. And then, as the clip ended, the next scene showed my project's first success, children laughing under the words, "Pride looks different when it's earned." The applause that followed wasn't just for me, it was for truth. After the premiere, people surrounded us. Reporters asked questions, flashes went off, and everyone wanted to know what my parents thought about that viral moment being replayed. Dad kept a firm expression. Mom stayed quiet. I answered simply, "The past is part of the story. Without it, there's no lesson." That seemed to calm the room. But I saw something change in my parents' faces, something almost like acceptance. When the crowd cleared, Mom touched my arm. "I didn't know they'd show that," she whispered. "I didn't either," I said gently. "But maybe it was needed." She nodded slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. "You made something good out of the worst moment of our lives." I wish I had done that. I hugged her carefully. She stiffened at first, then melted into the embrace. Outside, the night air smelled of rain. The crowd had moved on, but inside me, something shifted permanently. For the first time, I felt like we weren't enemies anymore, just people learning how to start again. Then my phone buzzed with a message that made my stomach drop. "You should see who's claiming credit for your school online." I opened the link and my hands froze. A news site headline blared, "Clark family announces plans to expand Aurora Learning Network." There was my father's photo, standing beside city officials. No mention of me. My throat tightened. The article quoted him saying, "We're proud of what we built for the next generation." I slammed the laptop shut, heart racing. After everything, after the apology, after the healing, they were doing it again. Emily called moments later. "Mia, this is wrong. You have to speak up." "I know," I said, my voice trembling. "But if I fight them publicly, the kids' funding could be at risk." I sat there, torn between fury and fear. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until dawn. Then I made a choice. I called the journalist who'd interviewed me before. "I need you to record something," I said. "A message from me. The truth, start to finish." He agreed immediately. By evening, we filmed in the school courtyard. The last line I said was simple. "I built this not to prove them wrong, but to show what's possible when pain becomes purpose." Then I walked off camera, heart steady. The video went live the next morning. Within hours, it exploded. Comments flooded in, millions of them. Hashtags trended. People called it the most powerful truth speech of the year. By afternoon, reporters surrounded my parents' office. My father held a press conference, voice shaking. "The project belongs to my daughter," he said finally. "Always has." That single sentence made headlines around the world. At the Learning Center, the students and teachers celebrated. Someone brought cake. Children laughed and sang my name. As the sun set, I stood outside, watching the colors fade into gold and pink. My phone buzzed, Dad again. This time, the message was short. "We saw the video. You were right. I smiled faintly, tears slipping down my cheeks. Then, just as I started to walk back inside, a car pulled up. A black envelope slipped under the gate. No note. No sender. Just one line embossed in gold. For the next chapter of Aurora, if you're ready to lead it. I opened it, and my breath caught. Inside was an invitation signed by the National Education Council, offering me a global partnership. I looked toward the horizon and whispered, "It's only beginning."